And now, a man who needs no introduction. Hello. My name is Aid. I'm getting divorced. Comedy is dead. Only joking. I'm at a vulnerable position in my life. All my nerves are a bit exposed. Indecently, I tell you. Indecent exposure. Oof. There's a thing. When I was a kid, I learned in England that if a woman is naked in her garden and a man sees her over his fence, he is a peeping Tom and a pervert, and thus, therefore, must be punished. Whereas, if a man is naked in his garden and a woman looks over her fence and sees him, he is indecently exposing himself and is a pervert and must be punished. It's a funny thing to learn when you're a little male kid, especially when you have a single mum and a grandmother and the Queen of England and Margaret Thatcher and Princess Diana is the most famous woman in the world. It's pretty funny with all that ingredients to find out that you're part of an oppressive patriarchy. To me, from my perspective, that feels like such a deep organic lie that I refute it because it's the honest thing to do. Now, I understand what you mean by patriarchy. Don't get me wrong, feminists. I like some of you feminists, especially the slutty ones. Oh no, he's viewing you as sex objects. Your bodies have sexuality emanating from them. We desire you because we are filled with the hope of a transcendent, better world where the organic desire is in alignment with our cultural belonging and our skills at developing and producing and supplying and providing and all of this stuff, and it's getting condemned as roles, and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of little boys are getting emasculated by this culture. Men going their own way. Women don't like them. They also don't like incels. If you think about that, you either go it alone because you don't want to be around women, or you go it alone because women don't want to be around you. Either way, you're contemptible. Now, I ain't complaining. I would have done until the divorce came along, but I don't need such self-indulgent misery weighing me down right now. I have decided that instead of dying in misery, destitute, in poverty, with no education, and of little hope of a better employment than that which I currently have, I have decided to go all out and save the world. And I mean that literally, metaphorically, metaphysically, and actually. We've got a global world here. Globalization was the key business thing that was going on back in the 80s, yeah? Yeah, that was what we were doing back then, you know? Yeah, you're acquiring your portfolio, yeah? The government needed some funds, right? So what they did, yeah, was that they sold off all their public assets, right? And then we have sort of like made a lot of money from strip sailing, all that sort of stuff. And the unions were trashed and all that kind of stuff. So what actually happened was that there was no longer any leverage between the people, the workers, as we called them. But then they're not called the workers now. They're called the human resources. Good evening, human resources. How are you feeling? Resourceful, I hope. Human resources of the world, unite. And apparently it's a privilege to be a human resource. Because if you're not in there, you're even further out. In the place that we used to call the West, it was the West because that was the direction. You know, democratically the West sort of won because that's the way people walked if they didn't want to die after the Second World War. Then it became a bit less of a direction and more of a gang. And many of us were born in this gang with a culture that assured us that we were free, and if you just put in the work, things will work out for you. And that wasn't a lie. People throughout history, everywhere in the world, have produced by working. They create things. They create things that benefit themselves, their immediate family, their community, their locality. And if we can find a momentum to do stuff like that, it could get infectious. Here's the thing, right? We need, first of all, to understand the world is round. People can't fuck off. They can only go somewhere else. And if you tell them to fuck off, they'll go and meet with other people who have been told similarly to fuck off by people just like you. And then they have all these little slogans and everything like that. And they're like, well, fucking hell, man. There was a book by George Orwell. Not that one. No, not that one either. It was called Coming Up for Air. Coming Up for Air, it was called. And he referred to Nazi Germany as Hitler was on the rise. He referred to it as that place where they think in slogans and talk in bullets. It was a precursor towards a war that, let me just put it this way, if this situation breaks out into a world war without like any sort of structure of authoritarian looking out for kind of thing, I mean, I don't mean that as authoritarian as is understood. The word author is at the front of this. We need a lot of creative people, artists, right? Get on it. The beauty, you know what beauty is. It's not a lie. That's all. All right, where was I? I just got like fucking distracted by the word authoritarian. Authoritarians against authoritarianism. Unite! A lot of the slogans going around in our culture right now are ultimatums. You're either with us or you're against us. Now, I don't blame anybody for what's going on right now. We're all at the receiving end of what is essentially the second Gutenberg revolution. The internet has done all manner of really weird, freaky shit. You know, just think about this, right? China gets the virus and a shop in Sweden runs out of toilet paper. The connections that lead to that being a reality, it's too numerous. And I honestly fear that the serrated edge of digital tech, so it's either a 1 or a 0. You're either a racist or an anti-racist. The digital code of the internet is encapsulating us into tribes of ultimatum transmitters and defense mechanism knee-jerkers. And it's oh, fucking hell, man. We're in a world where robots are losing jobs to other robots. And our little creatures inside us are starting to get a little bit, woohoo! Don't really care for reason. Oh, there's a word that eludes my brain right now. It's not resourceful, human resources. Oh, fun. When You're on a ship many centuries ago that helped to know where the Orient was so that you could find your way home, not go sailing off into the wrong direction. Knowing where the Orient is was referred to as orientation. If you are disoriented, you have no primer, no point of reference with which to place your feet forward. Rations. To be rational is to think with your rations in mind. If you are oriented, you can think rationally about what to do next. And I believe in you, and I don't say that because it's some kind of airy fairy arty farty hippy dippy easy swallow kind of pastiche of, like, you know, shallow philosophical religious what to do dahs. I say that because you're alive, and things that are alive are to be believed in. They are here. There's nothing wrong with the universe. We're all the sperm that made it. Diversity has to mean nobody else gets killed, or it doesn't mean diversity. It is, in effect, eugenics. I think I want to start a political party, but it's an open source political party. You can claim your affiliation with it by going, oh, I'm in it at the moment. Oh no, I'm not in it at the moment. There is no way anybody who's in the party, which is what it's called, nobody in the party represents the party. America. Oh, America. And your sense of importance. You became a Jenga block in the stability of the world. Mount Rushmore is called the Six Grandfathers. That's its name. That's the name of that rock. It's called the Six Grandfathers. And we revivify that. Go back to that. Call it that. In order to establish that the native spirit is still alive there. And it's important to maintain that native spirit, because otherwise it becomes untethered from the land itself. Many of the natives died when my ancestors' relatives went over there bringing their diseases and shit. Yeah, diseases and shit. Different biological arenas meeting for the first time with the technology to travel great distances and have effects on other places that are the reason why we are apparently supposed to accept traditional conflicts. We are supposed to accept being held hostage to traditional hatreds. And I don't think that is social justice. There are new babies born every second. How many was that? Oh, I forgot to do jokes. I bought some camouflage trousers the other day. Can't find them. I used that one to test the room once at an open mic comedy event. Some woman in the audience snorted like a disgusted pig. Now I heard the noise, so my comedy brain went, is there a pig in here? I looked around the room and caught the scowling eyes of a woman larger than I, and I felt her glare as a rather unwelcome glance. So I turned to the guy next to him and said, do you always bring a pig with you when you go out? I wasn't calling her a pig. Of course I wasn't. I was acting on the joke of the noise of a pig. After that set, the owner of the club came up and shook my hand, looking from side to side, kind of protecting himself a little bit, and the glint in his eye told me that even though I had just bombed on stage, I reckon about half the people in the audience pretended they didn't find that funny. It's funny because it was a mistake. We make mistakes because we can't possibly plot the world around us. The world is way too complicated for us to act like it's some kind of equation where once we've got all the facts in, our opinions are true. We all know this. Now look, America, if you have a civil war, you're a bunch of fucking idiots. You've had the reputation of being stupid for quite a long time. But you know, people do that because they're jealous. You've actually had quite a lot of opportunities. You've been the land of opportunity. You're certainly a place where people went for that dream of getting away from persecution and being free for a good couple of centuries. That's quite a story. But now, you know, the inmates of this freedom prison colony of some kind are deciding to construe their liberty to act out on their fact-based opinions and their emotions to make war with Americans and call them un-American about America because America. I think the next civil war will be about who started the last civil war. Your choice is dumb. It is dumb. I don't hate Donald Trump. I don't bother. There's no point. I used to hate George W. Bush. God, I hated that man. I hated him. He didn't know I existed. I even had a dream about him giving me an execution in jail. And, you know, actually injecting, like, the lethal, you know. That's how possessed I was by this man. And I think that what's going on is that, because that happened in my adulthood, it actually happened in a lot of people's childhood, this George W. Bush character. He would say some fucking things in public which was just like, you know, dictatorships aren't good unless I'm the dictator. Funny joke, but you know, context, mate. Read the fucking room. But here's what he did, and the reason why I mentioned that I was an adult and there were kids watching. He literally stood there and said, "You're either with us or you're with the terrorists." And everybody knew it was way more complicated than that. So he spoke in an ultimatum, and the international community was at the receiving end of that. And every single nation, we all had problems. My God, there were 2 million people in London protesting against the war in Iraq. 2 million people. I was nearby, my friend was there. He said they were flying helicopters like nearby. You couldn't hear the loudspeakers. 2 million people. But then you hear the other side of the story. You know, what Saddam Hussein was like. And then it all got a bit mad, you know. You start to realise this, like, after the 9/11, when the towers fell, the information bled all over the world. And people picked up different bits here and there. That's sort of what it was like for me. And after that comes social media and stuff. So, you know, there's definitely a story of some kind going on. But I think we need to stop the fighting. I think that's what we need to do. And it's perfectly plausible that we've gone too far to be told we've gone too far. And it's perfectly plausible that the spirit of revolution, with all its heartfelt legitimacy, the spirit of revolution is legitimate. But it is not rational. I have yet to hear anybody say that communism does not intend to kill millions of people again. And as a person of the people community, I find that offensive. But do remember that I said your spirit was legitimate. Do always remember that. There are many, many unjust structures going on, but we have inherited them. And it is within our powers to change them. But you cut head off, then another head gets cut off, and another head, and another head. We can't. The world has bestowed upon us too much power to have a war now. Too much. And I think that what Black Lives Matter has achieved is that it's definitely the fucking table. If any of you feel that a black voice is marginalised any longer, try talking to somebody. Find out if they listen to you. I assure you, we'd be happy to talk. Just that, what do you want us to do? Come up to you and go, hi, can we have a conversation about racism? Just imagine that scenario. Yeah, you're at the table. I think this century could be, instead of like the dying and squealing stupidity of the death of the industrial revolution mindset, that thing that just mass produces at such low costs as it increases the cost of living. What we need is an industrious resolution century. And my suggestion is that the entrepreneurs of Africa are waiting for the tools and the assistance and the knowledge and the technology to become the forefront of the move into green technologies. They've got the heat, they've got the water, they've got the vegetation. They have so much that they could do for themselves. And I think the global community does actually technically owe them. I think they do. I honestly think they do. I listen to a lot of UN speeches. They're all talking about blue economies and green economies, and, you know, they're all waiting for that initiative, but it's all corporate speak, you know. The eye of the UN. It's like, well, look at it this way, right? I don't know if I made a point there. The eye of the UN and your eye. It's like the difference on a paint program, Microsoft Paint. You know, you can zoom in and zoom out on an image. The UN can only look at the societies from a zoomed out perspective in order to encapsulate everything. But you zoom out on a picture, you miss the detail. And from your point of view, you just observe the detail, you miss out on the big picture. I just startled a deer. Sorry, dear. Yeah. Okay. So what we've got then is that with all these people's movements and momentum occurring, and it's self-evident that the economy has found a way to just collect all the money in huge piles in offshore tax havens and shit. It's that I think that if you are a billionaire, unless you want a world where you have to run away from guillotine wielding mobs, you might just want to start getting generous. And I know that there's a lot of philanthropy, and I'm aware of that. And I'm saying it because billionaires are human beings too. And if you cull the wealth creators, you have no wealth creators to tax. That's the fundamental problem of communism. And the fundamental problem of capitalism is the fact that it just keeps on finding a way to remove all the money and put it into private areas where it sits there doing very, very little as the corporates get subsidies in order to be enticed to not leave countries and in destitution. There's a really nasty part of what's up above our heads with corporations. You know, the arms industry, military industrial complex in general, the pharmaceutical industry, things that benefit financially from war and disease. They're not very humane, to make an understatement. We are alive because of so many generations before us. And you're not really a historian if you look back at history and disapprove. I look at history, I don't like it. Well, something happened to enable us to still be alive. And I think we made a really stupid mistake. Or people before us made a very stupid mistake by numbering the world wars. I mean, we like our trilogies, right? We like our Star Wars and all that sort of stuff. You know, World War One wasn't called World War One at the time, right? It was called the War to End All Wars. They weren't lying. I think they believed that was what was going to happen. But then, you know, Hitler and Stalin, the Axis powers and the Allies and all that kind of stuff, World War Two. So I think we've been given this, like, anticipation, this frozen moment, where we just hope World War III doesn't happen in our lifetime. Because it's not a trilogy we're really that keen on. Some of the very powerful people in religion scare me. They scare me because their influence and their power could easily be construed with their faith that God approves of what they're doing. And if what they're doing is ugly and not beautiful, it's not a God I recognise. I don't recognise a God that is pleased with people who cause suffering. But the God I was introduced to was one of things unquestionably improving in a way that no one can argue with, where everybody goes, oh, things are better now. Oh, that was a relief. I think, if we have free will, if we have choice, and the choice is World War III, or just a genuine surprise that things are fine, I would choose that. Take care of yourselves, literally, and metaphorically, and metaphysically, and join the party.